Hello and welcome to week 6. So last week you looked at the first of the why section in early childhood in our textbook, which was all about the rationale behind early childhood, and that's where you encountered the different theorists as well as the different types of programs that are out there in early childhood. So I hope that you enjoyed reviewing the material through the videos as well as through the textbook, just because it gives you a little bit different perspective and it also allows you to see it in action. The second part of the chapter deals with the different models of early childhood education, such as the Montessori method, Waldorf, High Scope, Bank Street. And so I hope that you took some time to review those. There was also some videos that talk about the different types of programs, but one of the courses in our program is actually Models of Early Childhood Education. So in a future course, you'll get a lot more information on those. But you do need to be familiar with the different programs that are out there because it may be something that you're interested in when you're looking at going out into the field. So this week we're actually going to move on to chapter 6, which is still in the why section, but it deals with accountability, standards, and assessment. So I know most people hate the word assessment because they normally think about test. But as you are quickly finding out, standardized testing and any sort of formal testing with young children is actually not a developmentally appropriate way to discover what we need to learn about children. And you will hear me say this more than once, observation is the best way to assess young children. There's nothing that we can't learn about children from simply observing them. We can figure out where their social skills are. We can figure out what their language skills are. We can figure out how they are able to regulate their emotions. All of those things can be done through observation. And so hopefully that's one of the big takeaways that you will get from chapter 6. The chapter also talks about the fact that in early childhood we are accountable, whether or not it's to a state or a federal agency or even just our own individual center, but we are always accountable to the parents and the families of the children that we are going to interact with. So the other part of the chapter deals with standards. So in the state of Virginia, most of you are going to be familiar with the SOLs. So if you went to public school in the state of Virginia, then you remember having to take the SOL test. And I will tell you, as just my own personal soapbox, I don't have a problem with the SOLs. What I do have a problem with is the amount of the emphasis that we placed on the testing of the SOLs. And that really is not a demonstration of what students know. To me, it really is more of a demonstration of whether or not you're a good test taker and if you have good short-term memory. But we want children to be able to learn things and we want them to remember them so that they can continue to build upon those skills the higher up in school they go. So when it comes to early childhood, which is birth to age 8, we have 3 sets of standards that we can use. So the first is the Virginia milestones, and I'm actually going to show you the milestones and how they're set up because I have it as a resource in this week's folder. Milestones are used for children from birth to 5. Now we also have something called the foundation blocks, and those are only for 4-year-olds. So those really are kind of those pre-kindergarten skills that the state says that they want children to have. So if you're working with 4-year-olds, you actually have 2 sets of standards that you can use. And then of course we get to the SOLs, which is going to be kindergarten through 12th grade. But for right now, we're going to focus on the milestones. So in this week's content folder, goals, objectives, and evaluations, you're going to find, again, we're going to read chapter 6. You're going to be reviewing the milestones, and your participation for this week is simply an email. I want to know so far in this course what really has made the most impact on you. What is something that you felt like you've learned and it really struck home and you want to make sure that you remember it. So that's all that you have to do for your participation this week. But getting back to the milestones, you'll see that underneath the chapter PowerPoint is the milestones PDF. So one of the first things that I want you to notice about the milestones is that the colors are going to be really important. Next week, when we get to Chapter 7, I'm going to be introducing an assignment that's going to require you to use the milestones, and so that's one of the reasons that I wanted you to become familiar with them this week, so that next week when you have to start using them, you'll understand how they are set up. So as you go through, the first thing to notice in the table of contents, again, is the colors. Now, each one of these colors represent different domains of learning. So make sure that you become familiar with that term, domain. That's kind of the big content area. So you see we have social and emotional development, approaches to learning, language and literacy, cognition and general knowledge, fine arts, and physical development and health. And those colors are going to help you determine which section you should be in. Now, each domain is then further broken down into different strands. And so you'll see under social and emotional development, there's 3 strands, and they're all looking at something a little bit different, but it still falls within the social and emotional development. If you look down in the language and literacy, you'll see it's 5 different strands. They all focus on language and literacy, but their specific focus is a little bit different. Listening and speaking, phonological awareness, print awareness, comprehension, early writing. So the table of contents alone is going to be very helpful for you as you need to start using this resource. You are going to talk about milestones in every single CHD class that you take. So the more familiar you become with them now, the easier it's going to be in your other classes. So then the way that it's broken down is the first section is going, this is just introductory. So really the first section you get to is the overview of domain indicators and strands. And so with each one of the domains, what they've done is they've broken down into the strands. But then underneath the strands, those are the actual standards. So the standards are the ones that have the letter and the number. And so it always goes in chronological order. So the ones are always going to be the youngest children, and the higher numbers are always going to be the oldest children. And they actually break that down for you as well. So each domain is going to follow the same pattern. So we'll just go through the social and emotional development so that you can see how each of them are going to be set up. So then what we do is they're going to take each strand, and now they're going to break it down even further into the age groups. So we have birth to 18 months, 18 to 36 months, 36 to 48, and 48 months and older. And so you can see where the different standards actually fall, which means if you had to create a lesson plan for children 3 years old, so 3 years old is normally 36 months. You're not going to use something from the birth to 18 months, and you're not going to use something from the 48 months and older unless the children are extremely advanced. So it's important to know that these standards are broken down into the age groups so that we know what's developmentally appropriate for the particular age group. So they do this for all of the strands that fall under each domain. And what's even better is they give you examples of what you might observe the child doing to indicate that they are on track for their particular age group, and things that you can do as a teacher to help them. So it's a fantastic resource that I hope that you're going to download and you're going to save. But to me, what really is the most helpful thing is the colors, because that really does help you figure out, where am I? Is this the section that I want to look at? So you'll see that this continues on for the rest of the domains. So then after they do this, the next section, and I hope that you don't get seasick as I'm going through this to get to the last section. But then we get to the comprehensive milestones. And so what they do in this section is they take the domain So remember, the domain is it's the umbrella term for the content area. They introduce you, they tell you what's going on, they explain the different strands, and then they take each standard and they separate it out by saying this is what the standard is, this is what you might observe, and this is how you can help. So you find that it kind of starts out fairly general at the beginning with the table of contents. It just says this is the domain, these are the strands, but then the next section takes it down to the standard level, which then is followed by the age, and then if you are concentrating on one particular standard, then you can go towards the back section and you can actually see what they have put for that particular standard. So again, just a quick little tutorial in how to use the milestones because you are going to be using them next week. So I hope that you found that helpful. Again, you're going to be using milestones in every single class. So the sooner you become familiar with how it's laid out and how to use it to your advantage, it's full of great teaching information. Because sometimes we say, well, I know children should be doing this, but what could it look like and how can I help them? The milestones are giving you some really great information. So don't forget that your theorist project is due at the end of this week, and as always, I will do my best to have them graded within a week. But for this week, enjoy reading chapter 6 and learning all about the milestones, and I can't wait to see your emails about what has made an impact on you so far. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you next week.